Anthony's boots crunched over the gravel driveway as he stepped outside, the golden sunset glinting off his neighbor's perfectly trimmed lawns. He stopped mid-step, irritation tightening in his gut. There it was again, sleek, black, and smug in its presence. A Dodge Challenger parked diagonally across his driveway like it owned the street. The engine gave a low, taunting growl, and the air smelled faintly of burnt rubber and oil. Anthony ran a hand through his short-cropped hair, jaw tightening. Not today. Not again. From the driver's seat, James leaned back, one arm lazily draped over the window, a smirk tugging at his lips. His dark sunglasses caught the fading light, throwing it back like a challenge. Beside him, Penelope sat on the sidewalk, arms crossed, a grin of mischief playing on her face. Her pink top and denim romper stood out like a spotlight against the car's black finish, mocking Anthony's growing frustration. "You seriously parked here again?" Anthony's words were sharp and measured. James laughed, light and careless. "Relax, man. It's just a driveway. Don't get so worked up." He flexed his fingers on the steering wheel as the engine purred beneath his touch. Penelope leaned forward with a teasing grin. "Why are you so uptight, Anthony? It's not Fort Knox, chill out." The sarcasm hit harder than he expected. Anthony's hands curled into fists, nails pressing into his palms. He had tried everything before. Calls to the HOA, polite warnings, even quiet hints, but nothing worked. And now here they were again, flaunting their arrogance like it was a game. He forced a deep breath, eyes scanning the Challenger. It wasn't just bold, it felt wrong. Polished to perfection, yet something about it seemed off. The way James handled it, the overconfidence, that glint of thrill when he revved the engine, it all screamed trouble. Anthony's gut told him this car wasn't his. He knew the type. People who lived to break rules, to push boundaries, to test patience. He stepped closer, gravel crunching under his boots in deliberate rhythm. James tilted his head, smirk never fading. "Careful, man. You might hurt yourself." Anthony's voice stayed steady, though the weight of frustration sat heavy behind it. "Move it now." James leaned back, crossing his arms. "Or what? My sister will take care of it?" Penelope laughed, loud and sharp, her voice echoing through the quiet street. "Seriously, Anthony, loosen up. Not everyone lives by your little rule book." The street suddenly felt smaller, shadows stretching long across the pavement. Heat rose in Anthony's chest, a mix of anger and disbelief. He crouched beside the car, inspecting the tires and undercarriage. Scuffs, scratches, signs of reckless use. And that feeling in his gut deepened. This wasn't just arrogance. This was carelessness hiding something darker. James leaned toward the passenger side, smirking. "What now, man? Checking for hidden cameras? Trying to figure out why I'm better at life than you?" Anthony straightened, locking eyes with him. "Better at life? That's rich, coming from someone driving a car he doesn't even own." The words hit like a hammer. For the first time, James's smirk faltered. Just for a second, but enough. Penelope noticed, her grin tightening, posture shifting slightly. The balance had changed. Anthony circled the car slowly, the golden light catching the chrome edges and painting the Challenger in deceptive beauty. His mind worked fast. He needed proof, something concrete. If they wanted to play this game, he'd play smarter. The neighborhood was still. The only sounds, a barking dog in the distance, the faint hum of traffic, and the car's steady growl. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Anthony slipped his phone from his pocket, angling it discreetly. He snapped photos, details, angles, plates quietly and calmly. James chuckled, still oblivious. "You think taking pictures will change anything?" Anthony didn't answer. He just smiled, a quiet, knowing smile of someone who had finally found the upper hand. "It's not about thinking, James. It's about proving." Penelope leaned forward, eyes narrowing as the tension shifted. She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped, glancing at James. Her face was unreadable, but her body language betrayed a flicker of unease. Anthony caught it instantly. It was subtle, but it mattered. He straightened, letting his gaze sweep over the Challenger one more time. Every gleam of paint, every polished edge. The faint scorch marks on the tires told their own story, evidence of an engine pushed too far. It was a car that demanded attention, one that commanded the street. But like its driver, it had a weakness, pure arrogance. Anthony's hand hovered over his phone, thumb poised as his mind raced. The air felt heavy, the street holding its breath. Shadows stretched long across the pavement as the last traces of sunlight vanished. The hum of the Challenger grew louder, rumbling like a storm about to break. He took a single step forward, calm but firm. Move it before this ends badly for someone. James laughed again, but this time there was a nervous edge under the mockery. Ends badly? You're funny, man. Relax. Anthony's gaze never wavered. The real confrontation wasn't about words, it was about control, patience, and timing. And tonight he wasn't backing down. The sun disappeared completely, twilight wrapping the street in a dull orange glow. The Challenger's black paint absorbed the light, gleaming with menace. Anthony felt his pulse rise. This wasn't just another argument. Something was about to give, and when it did, the fallout wouldn't stop at his driveway. He drew in a slow breath, steadying himself. This was the calm before the storm. He had to be smart. The moment had to be right. James reclined in the seat, still smirking, while Penelope mirrored his posture, tense, defiant, but no longer so sure. Anthony watched the Challenger idle, the engine vibrating like a caged animal waiting to strike. The streetlights replaced the fading sunset, casting long shadows that painted the car in sinister tones. He clenched his fists. He had called the HOA, tried reasoning, even mentioned legal consequences, but none of it worked. James acted like the world revolved around him, and Penelope's constant mockery only fueled it. Anthony stepped closer, his voice low and steady. This ends tonight. Move it or I'm calling the cops. James laughed, sharp and taunting. Or what, man? My sister knows the rules. You're just being dramatic. Penelope leaned on the Challenger, arms crossed, her expression daring. Seriously, Anthony, pick your battles. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Relax. His jaw tightened. The arrogance, the mockery, it boiled in his chest. You think I'm joking? Move it. James yawned in mock boredom, then revved the engine. The roar filled the night air, deep and aggressive. Tires squealed, leaving black streaks on the driveway, a deliberate act of defiance. Anthony's pulse spiked. The tension was thick enough to feel. He circled the car, noting every mark and scratch, every careless sign of recklessness. This wasn't just about disrespect, it was about danger. He had seen this pattern before, and tonight it was escalating. You know this car isn't even yours, right? His voice was calm but sharp with accusation. James's smirk wavered, the slightest crack in his confidence. Excuse me? What are you talking about? Anthony stepped closer, his tone cold and deliberate. I know where this car came from. You didn't earn it, you stole it. And sooner or later that's going to catch up with you. Penelope's usual laughter faltered. She glanced at her brother, uncertainty flashing in her eyes. Anthony, that's ridiculous. You've got nothing on us. This is our neighborhood. Our family. Anthony didn't flinch. Family doesn't give you a free pass to break the law, and arrogance doesn't make you untouchable. James revved the engine louder, tires squealing as smoke curled off the asphalt. The sound tore through the quiet neighborhood, drawing eyes from nearby windows. Faces appeared behind curtains, whispers spreading. Anthony realized reasoning was useless. Confrontation had failed before. James's ego was armor, and Penelope's support only strengthened it. If shouting didn't work, strategy would. He needed leverage. Something undeniable. Anthony stepped back, watching James settle back into his seat. Cocky, confident, convinced of his own invincibility. Anthony's mind worked fast, calculating every option. James lived for attention. Social media, videos, bragging. Every reckless stunt was online somewhere. That arrogance was the key. But before he could act, he needed proof. Real, irrefutable proof of recklessness. Anthony raised his phone, steady and deliberate. The camera recorded the growling engine, the squealing tires, the deliberate obstruction. James, lost in his own bravado, didn't even notice. Penelope leaned closer to whisper something, her voice hushed but anxious. Anthony caught it all, every second, every sound. This time he wasn't just confronting them. He was documenting everything. And soon their arrogance would be their undoing. The evidence was stacking up. Each frame, each second, another piece of proof. Not just for karma, but for justice. Every photo, every sound captured would tie together the story of their arrogance, their carelessness, and her complicity. Anthony's gaze drifted across the quiet street. The night air felt heavy, filled with the steady hum of the Challenger's engine, a low, threatening vibration that seemed to pulse with tension. Reflections danced across the car's glossy black surface, exposing faint scratches and imperfections beneath the shine. The headlights glowed like embers, red and alive, illuminating the scene in a warning light. Every detail mattered. Every moment was another thread in the web he was weaving. James finally broke the silence, his tone dripping with false bravado. "Taking pictures now? What are you planning to tell the cops?" Anthony's reply came steady, measured, calm. "Not just the cops. You'll see this one coming, whether you like it or not." Penelope's posture stiffened. The playful arrogance she wore like armor began to crack. Her confidence wavered, barely noticeable, but Anthony caught it. She leaned against the challenger, still trying to look unfazed, but her eyes flickered with something new. Worry. Anthony continued to circle the car, his phone quietly recording. The shifting tires, the low rumble of the engine, the distant hum of passing cars, all blended into a quiet symphony of building conflict. The night deepened around them, shadows stretching thin across the pavement as the air grew tense enough to taste. He knew brute force wouldn't work tonight. He had tried logic, warnings, even threats. None of it reached them. They were young, arrogant, and convinced of their invincibility. The key wasn't confrontation, it was patience, timing, and precision. James was blind with ego. Penelope was impulsive, loyal, and protective, but her weakness was exposure. Anthony had all three advantages: leverage, evidence, and control. He took a careful step back, allowing James to believe he'd won this round. "All right," Anthony said evenly, his voice calm but layered with meaning. "Enjoy your victory tonight, but keep your eyes open. This isn't over." James laughed again, the sound lighter than before but edged with nerves he didn't recognize. "Over? You're funny, man. Maybe next time. Try not to stress out till then." Anthony didn't blink. His gaze stayed fixed on James, studying every twitch, every sign of overconfidence. He pretended to scroll casually through his phone, but his mind was racing, running scenarios, preparing for every outcome. Each careless laugh, each reckless rev of that stolen car only tightened the noose they were weaving around themselves. As Anthony finally turned toward his own car, a cold calm settled in. Determination coiled through him like wire, taut and ready. The balance of power hadn't shifted yet, but it would. The pieces were moving into place. One impulsive mistake, one flash of arrogance, and everything would fall exactly as he planned. The night air brushed cool against his skin, carrying the faint scent of exhaust and asphalt. James sat back, drumming his fingers against the wheel, smirk still plastered across his face. Penelope leaned close, whispering something tense, protective. Anthony noted it all, their words, their movements, their energy, each detail feeding the strategy forming in his mind. He gave one last look to the challenger, sleek, dangerous, deceptive. The two of them framed against it like figures in a scene destined to unravel. The street was silent again, but beneath that silence, something was shifting. Anthony's plan was already in motion, unseen, unstoppable, and perfectly aligned with the chaos waiting just ahead. Anthony stayed inside for a few moments longer, waiting for the street to darken before stepping quietly back outside, phone in hand. Everything was ready: social media posts, neighborhood watch alerts, and timed notifications. Every rev of that Dodge Challenger, every arrogant move, was about to be caught on camera and shared. He knew James's overconfidence would make him reckless, and Anthony planned to let him expose himself completely. James sat in the driver's seat, fingers drumming the steering wheel, smirk never fading. "You really think your little camera tricks can do anything?" he taunted. Penelope leaned against the car, arms crossed, pretending to be relaxed, but her tension showed in the way her shoulders tightened. Anthony's voice stayed calm, steady, almost too quiet. "It's not a trick, James, it's reality, and reality has a way of catching up to people who think they're untouchable." James laughed, sharp and dismissive, but Anthony caught the flicker of unease in his eyes. He revved the engine louder this time, tires squealing against the asphalt. The car growled like it was alive, hungry for chaos, and James, blind to consequence, was eager to feed it. Anthony stepped forward into the street, standing in plain sight, his camera rolling. "Go ahead," he said evenly. "Show me what you've got." James grinned and slammed the car into gear. The Challenger lunged forward, tires screeching as dust swirled down the quiet suburban block. Anthony's pulse quickened, but his face stayed unreadable. He'd been waiting for this exact moment. The engine roared, the headlights streaked, and neighbors peeked from windows, some recording, some whispering. His phone captured everything: James's reckless grin, Penelope's anxious glance, the gleam of black paint under the streetlights. Anthony's fingers worked fast, uploading clips and activating the alerts he'd queued. Posts went live across local pages. Tips were sent to law enforcement. A digital net was closing in. James laughed wildly as the Challenger accelerated. "This is nothing. Anthony can't stop me," he shouted, ignoring Penelope's warning tone. The car's growl deepened, echoing down the narrow street like a storm building. Anthony watched each turn, each overcorrection, each mistake. Every second brought them closer to what he knew was coming. Then his phone buzzed. Confirmation. The police had received his report, verified the stolen vehicle, and were en route. At the end of the street, the first flashes of red and blue appeared. Sirens rose, mixing with the Challenger's roar in a chaotic symphony of downfall. James's smirk faltered. His hands tightened on the wheel. He tried to swerve, tires screaming, but it was too late. Anthony had planned everything: the timing, the angles, the exposure. The neighborhood was awake now. Witnesses lining porches, phones raised. Penelope's voice cracked through the noise, desperate. "James, stop. What are you doing?" But the moment had already slipped away. The Dodge Challenger skidded sideways, smoke pouring from its tires. The police closed in fast, blocking both ends of the street. Anthony stood back, steady and silent, watching justice unfold exactly as he'd envisioned. The arrogance that fueled James's defiance was now the trap that sealed his fate. The chase ended in a blur of flashing lights. The Challenger coughed one final roar before stalling out, steam curling into the night air. James stepped out, hands shaking, disbelief etched across his face. The sound of sirens faded into the background as Anthony lowered his phone, finally still. The plan had worked. Karma had arrived, right on schedule. Penelope tried to shield her brother, but a police officer gently yet firmly held her back. Her protests echoed through the quiet suburban homes, fading beneath the wail of distant sirens. For Anthony, the moment carried a strange mix of triumph and calm. Justice had arrived, not out of anger, but through patience, planning, and proof. He stepped closer, phone still recording, capturing every detail, every flicker of fear, every shift in expression. James's once cocky grin was gone, replaced by panic and disbelief. The arrogance that had fueled his defiance had finally crumbled. Penelope, restrained but unyielding, glared at Anthony, her defiance flickering like a dying flame. But even she couldn't ignore the truth. Their choices had consequences. Anthony's voice broke the tension, steady and unwavering. "Driveways are free," he said, "but respect isn't. You broke the rules, and the rules caught up with you." The Dodge Challenger sat in the middle of the street, damaged but still standing, a black monument to ego and downfall. Smoke drifted lazily from its tires, headlights glowing a faint red against the asphalt. The scene looked almost cinematic, frozen in the aftermath of chaos. Anthony stood silently, the weight of the night settling on his shoulders. His plan had worked. Balance had been restored. But experience told him one thing: peace always needed protecting. The officers led James and Penelope away, their protests growing weaker as they disappeared down the street. Anthony exhaled slowly, the tension easing from his chest. A quiet smile formed on his face. Neighbors had gathered nearby, whispering in relief, some recording the final moments, others nodding in approval. The street felt different now, calmer, safer, united. Anthony turned toward his house, glancing once more at the Challenger. The car stood motionless, a silent warning to anyone tempted to mistake arrogance for power. The air smelled faintly of burnt rubber and asphalt, a reminder of everything that had unfolded. As he reached his doorway, Anthony paused, looking back one final time. The chaos was gone, but its lesson would echo through the neighborhood long after the tire marks had faded. Justice had been served. And this time it would be remembered.